chewing all time, man. You think you can just walk in here and disrespect me? Think again! Back off! You're out of line!
The glass shattered against the marble floor of Romanoff's restaurant in Beverly Hills, 1962. Every head turned as Vincent the Hammer Marcello stood up, his 6'3" frame towering over a young waiter who just spilled red wine on his expensive suit. The gangster's hand rose slowly, deliberately, ready to deliver a slap that would echo through Hollywood history. But what happened next? A smooth voice cut through the tension like a knife through butter. "Vinny, that's not how we treat family here." Dean Martin stood from his corner booth, martini in hand, his eyes locked on the most dangerous man in Los Angeles. The entire restaurant held its breath. Nobody challenged Vincent Marcello. Not the police. Not the FBI. Certainly not a crooner from Steubenville, Ohio. Before we see how this unfolds, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss stories of when old Hollywood legends faced down the underworld. Let me take you back to understand who these men really were. Dean Martin wasn't just a singer or comedian. Born Dino Paul Crocetti in 1917, he grew up in Steubenville's Little Italy, where his father was a barber and the neighborhood was run by men who spoke in whispers and settled disputes with violence. Young Dino learned early that respect wasn't given, it was earned. And you earned it by never showing fear, even when fear was the smartest response. By 1962, Dean had conquered every stage in America. The Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. ruled Las Vegas. His movies were box office gold. His TV variety show would soon become the biggest thing on television. But beneath the tuxedo and the easy smile was still that kid from Little Italy who understood the language of the streets. Vincent the Hammer Marcello was a different kind of legend. He'd earned his nickname in Chicago during the 1940s, when he'd personally handled 23 business disputes for the outfit. By the time he moved to Los Angeles in 1958, he controlled most of the illegal gambling operations from Beverly Hills to Santa Monica. The FBI had a file on him 3 inches thick, but couldn't make a single charge stick. Marcello loved 2 things: respect and Romanoff's restaurant. Every Thursday night at 8 p.m., he'd occupy the same corner table with his crew, 4 stone-faced men who made their living breaking bones and silencing problems. The restaurant owner, Mike Romanoff, tolerated their presence because the alternative was having his restaurant accidentally catch fire. The young waiter who spilled the wine was named Tommy Rizzo. He was 22 years old, fresh from Kansas, working his way through acting classes while serving Hollywood's elite. He had no idea who Vincent Marcello was when he stumbled with the wine bottle, his hands shaking from a double shift. The burgundy liquid splashed across Marcello's gray silk suit, a $2,000 custom job from Rome. That Thursday night, Dean Martin was celebrating quietly in his usual booth. He'd just signed a deal for 3 more movies and wanted a steak, some quiet, and maybe a 4th martini. He noticed Tommy's mistake the moment it happened. He saw the color drain from the kid's face when Marcello stood up, his chair scraping against the floor like a death sentence. "You clumsy piece of trash." Marcello's voice was quiet, which somehow made it more terrifying. His accent still carried traces of Chicago's South Side. "You know how much this suit cost?" Tommy stammered. "Sir, I'm so sorry, I'll pay for the cleaning aisle." "You'll pay." Marcello laughed, but there was no humor in it. His crew laughed too, on cue, like a pack of wolves sensing blood. "Kid, you make what, $2 an hour? This suit cost more than you'll earn in a year." The restaurant had gone completely silent. 75 diners, including movie stars, directors, and studio executives, all watched with the sick fascination of people witnessing a car crash. Nobody moved. Nobody helped. In Hollywood, you didn't interfere with men like Vincent Marcello unless you wanted to end your career, or worse. Mike Romanoff appeared from the kitchen, his face pale. "Mr. Marcello, please, it was an accident. The wine is on the house, your entire meal is." "Shut up, Mike." Marcello snapped without looking at him. "This is between me and the kid." Tommy Rizzo stood frozen, the empty wine bottle still in his hand, his white shirt stained red from splashback. He was trying not to cry, trying to maintain some dignity, but his whole body trembled. He'd moved to Hollywood with dreams of becoming the next James Dean. Now he was about to get slapped by a real-life gangster in front of everyone who mattered in this town. Marcello grabbed Tommy by the collar, lifting him slightly off his feet despite the kid being taller. The gangster's other hand rose slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone saw what was coming. This wasn't just about punishment. This was about sending a message. This was about showing everyone in Romanoff's restaurant that Vincent Marcello owned this town, and nobody, not even some innocent kid from Kansas, could disrespect him without consequences. "You're gonna learn something tonight," Marcello said, his face inches from Tommy's. "You're gonna learn that actions have consequences. And everyone here is gonna remember what happens when you disrespect Vincent Marcello." Tommy closed his eyes, waiting for the blow. That's when Dean Martin moved. "Vinny," Dean's voice carried across the silent restaurant, smooth as Tennessee whiskey. "That's not how we treat family here." Marcello's hand froze midair. He turned slowly, his face contorting with confusion and rage. Nobody used his nickname unless they knew him from the old days. And nobody interrupted Vincent Marcello in the middle of making an example. Dean Martin walked toward them with the casual confidence of a man who'd had too much to drink, or not enough fear. His martini still in hand, his tie slightly loosened, he looked like he was heading to tell a joke, not confront a killer. "Dean, this doesn't concern you," Marcello said, his voice tight. "Go back to your table." "Kids from the old neighborhood," Dean lied smoothly, gesturing with his drink. "His Uncle Tony? Used to run the barber shop next to my father's place in Steubenville. Can't let you slap my paisano, Vinny. Wouldn't be right." The restaurant held its collective breath. Everyone knew Dean was lying. But they also recognized something in his voice, in his stance. This wasn't drunk bravado. This was a man who understood the rules of a game most of Hollywood didn't even know was being played. Marcello's eyes narrowed. "His Uncle Tony, huh? What's his last name?" "Rizzo," Dean said without hesitation, having caught the kid's name from the earlier stammering. "Tony Rizzo. You remember Tony? Made the best pasta fagioli in Ohio. Always said his nephew was going to be a movie star." He smiled that famous smile. "Kid's just nervous, Vinny. It's his first week. You know how it is." Marcello studied Dean's face, searching for the lie. But Dean Martin had learned from the best liars in show business. His expression never flickered. Behind him, Tommy Rizzo stood paralyzed, not understanding what was happening but smart enough to stay silent. "I don't remember no Tony Rizzo," Marcello said finally. Dean shrugged. "It was a long time ago. We were kids. But here's what I remember about the old neighborhood, Vinny." His voice dropped lower, losing the casual tone. "We took care of our own. And we didn't make big scenes in public places. Made us look like animals. Made us look like we didn't have class." The word class hung in the air like a challenge. Marcello's jaw tightened. In the underworld, few insults cut deeper than suggesting a man lacked class. "You calling me classless, Dean? I'm saying hitting a scared kid in front of all these people?" Dean gestured around the restaurant with his martini. "That's not the Vinny Marcello I heard about. The Vinny I heard about was smart. Knew when to show force and when to show mercy. Knew the difference between disrespect and an accident." Marcello's crew tensed, hands moving toward jacket pockets. But Marcello raised his hand slightly, stopping them. He was still holding Tommy by the collar, but his other hand had lowered. He was thinking now, calculating. Dean took another step closer. "Tell you what, Vinny. The kid's uncle owes me money from a card game. 20 years old debt. So technically the kid owes me. Which means if you gotta hit somebody for this wine thing, you gotta hit me." The challenge was clear. And impossible. You couldn't hit Dean Martin. Not in Hollywood. Not in 1962. He was too famous, too beloved, too connected. Hitting Dean Martin would bring heat that even Vincent Marcello couldn't handle. The FBI would use it as an excuse to investigate everything. The newspapers would have a field day. The entire underworld would see it as Marcello losing control, letting emotion override business sense. Marcello released Tommy's collar. The kid stumbled backward, caught by a busboy who'd been frozen nearby. "Your debt, huh?" Marcello said quietly. "My debt," Dean confirmed. "But how about this instead? You let me buy you a new suit. I know a guy in Rome, same tailor you use. I'll call him tomorrow. Meanwhile, Mike here brings you the best bottle of wine in his cellar, and we forget this whole thing happened." Dean extended his hand. Not in friendship, but in business. A deal between men who understood how the world really worked. Vincent Marcello looked at Dean's extended hand for what felt like an eternity. The entire restaurant seemed to exist in a bubble outside of time. Then slowly Marcello smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, but it was acceptance. He shook Dean's hand once firmly. "You got balls, Dean. I'll give you that." He turned to his crew. "We're leaving. Mike, send the bill to Dean Martin." Marcello walked toward the exit, his men following. But at the door, he turned back one more time. "Dean, we're even. But next time one of your cousins spills wine on me, I'm sending him to you in pieces. Understood? Dean raised his martini in salute. Understood, Vinny. Send my regards to Chicago. After they left, the restaurant erupted in nervous conversation. Dean returned to his booth like nothing had happened, finishing his drink in one swallow. Tommy Rizzo approached tentatively, tears streaming down his face. Mr. Martin, I don't know how to thank you. I don't have an Uncle Tony. I don't even have family in Ohio. You saved my life. Dean looked up at him, his eyes suddenly serious. Kid, you want to make it in this town? Learn 2 things. First, never show fear. These guys can smell it like blood in the water. Second, know when you're in over your head and find someone who speaks the language. Tommy nodded, unable to speak. Now get me another martini, Dean said, his famous smile returning. And try not to spill this one, huh? The story spread through Hollywood like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew how Dean Martin had faced down Vincent Marcello to save some nobody waiter. The tale grew with each telling. Some versions had Dean pulling a gun. Others had him threatening to call Frank Sinatra. But everyone agreed on the essential truth. Dean Martin had stood up to the most dangerous man in Los Angeles without breaking a sweat. Surprisingly, Marcello never retaliated. Some say he respected Dean's courage. Others whisper that after thinking it through, Marcello realized Dean had done him a favor. By stopping the slap, Dean had saved Marcello from the FBI investigation that would have followed. A public assault in Romanoff's restaurant would have been too visible, too stupid. Dean had given him an exit strategy that let him keep his reputation while avoiding consequences. Tommy Rizzo never became a movie star, but he did become a successful character actor, appearing in dozens of TV shows throughout the 1960s and 70s. He named his first son Dean. What's the lesson here? Respect isn't about violence or fear. It's about understanding the situation, speaking the right language, and knowing when to stand up even when everyone else sits down. Dean Martin understood that real power isn't about muscles or guns. It's about confidence, intelligence, and the courage to risk everything for someone who can't help themselves. If this story inspired you to stand up for what's right, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share your own stories of courage in the comments below. And remember, in a world full of Vincent Marcellos, try to be a Dean Martin.